Right, so we can start the meeting. My name is Daniela, and I'm the CEO of PSK. I'm also your host and moderator for this breakout session. I'll first give you some ground rules before we begin. Thank you for participating in this session. Participants are muted during the entire course of this session. Please ask questions via the Q&A tab, and they shall be addressed by the panelists. I'll also ask the questions out loud. For PSK members, of course, if you haven't subscribed for the PSK conference, please do so on the PPB portal. And please note the session is being recorded and will be made available on PSK's YouTube page. And so I'd like to introduce our distinguished panelists for this breakout session. Dr. Rohin Vora is the Managing Director of Regal Pharmaceuticals Limited. He is also the current chair of both the Federation of Kenya Pharmaceutical Manufacturers, as well as the pharma sector at the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, KAM. He's also a board director of KAM and has been in the pharmaceutical industry for over 20 years. Dr. Rohin is a registered pharmacist, having qualified as a pharmacist in the UK and worked there for 10 years. He's also an active member of PSK. Karibu sana, Dr. Rohin Vora. Please say hello so that we know you're there.
Sorry, I didn't unmute myself. Afternoon. Thank you, Daniela, and I'm glad to be here.
Great. Thank you for being here. Next, our next panelist is Dr. Vimal Patel. He's a managing director of Cosmos Limited. Dr. Vimal holds a Bachelor of Pharmacy degree from Brighton University, where he majored in pharmaceutics and manufacturing. He has experience with Charing Cross Hospital, Regent Laboratories, Upjohn Laboratories, Cadila Laboratories, and has worked with Cosmos Limited since 1985, where he worked in operations and has been the MD of Cosmos since 2016. He holds several memberships, including Royal Pharmaceutical Society of Great Britain, Pharmaceutical Society of Kenya, the Supply Chain Committee of the Kenya Healthcare Federation, KHF, and he's presently the Vice Chair of the Federation of Kenyan Pharmaceutical Manufacturers, FKPM. Thank you very much for being here, Dr. Vimal. Please say hello so that the participants can hear your voice.
Okay, Daniela, thank you for this wonderful introduction, and I look forward to be part of the panelists and looking forward to the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, panelists. So let's get into it. For participants, this is a Zoom meeting. So if you want to speak, you can just raise your hand. It's possible for me to unmute you or for you to unmute yourself. And also put on the chat box areas that you want us to discuss or questions that you have. But to kickstart our discussion, we're going to talk about these three things. One is, what's a market share of locally manufactured products and how can we increase it? And then number two, what are some of the challenges a new entrant wanting to get into production is likely to face? Because Dr. Vimal and Dr. Rohin, we have a number of pharmacists who've been maybe in community pharmacy or they've been in wholesale and distribution, and they're considering entering into manufacturing, but it seems a little bit intimidating, so to speak. And so, the participants would like to hear what challenges somebody is likely to face. And thirdly, we want to also focus on local pharma manufacturing being part of the Big Four agenda. And actually it features in two of the Big Four agenda, and that is industrialization and universal health coverage. So since that agenda became the president's agenda 3 years ago, has there been any change in terms of enablers from the policy and regulatory space to local manufacturers? Has that agenda led to easing of maybe the tax regime or any other enabler that will help us boost local manufacturing. So these are the three areas I want us to start our discussion about. And I will start with you, Dr. Vimal. If you can just comment on the market share of local products, and is that enough, or do we need to increase it so that we're not so dependent on imported products? Over to you, Vimal.
Okay, so thank you, Daniela. Now, the statistics in this country, it's very difficult to get any kind of statistics here. But I think the last UNIDO project, which was done about 4 or 5 years ago, they mentioned something like 70% in value terms being imported and only 30% being local. But if you ask me, my rough estimate, it depends on which category of the medications you're looking at, yeah? If you're looking at patented products, obviously no company here makes patented products. So if you're looking anything off patent, then I would say that we're close to about maybe 40 to 50% supplying to KEMSA. Yeah, so that's what I would say right now. But we really need data as to what is being imported into the country and what has been supplied by the local companies here. And right now, KEMSA being the biggest customer for a lot of local companies, that's the rough estimate I can think of. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So 30 to 50%. Okay.
Again, how can we increase it? I think the increasing bit is depends on which way we want to go about. We often talk about India and Bangladesh. We need to use what they did and stop reinventing the wheel again. And we need to start putting those policies so that we can increase it. And I think your second and third questions will be related to what we need to do to increase this. So I think we can go into those when we answer the second and the third question. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Rohin, do you have any comment on how we can increase our market share of locally manufactured products, if you feel there's any need for that? And also maybe you can then segue into the next question, which are some of the challenges new entrants would face, because if we are to increase this capacity, then we need more entrants, and how some of those challenges can be mitigated. And you can even mix in the policy and regulatory enablers. Are there any, or are there barriers to expansion of local production? Over to you, Dr. Rohin.
Thanks, Daniela. I mean, your one question was whether we need to increase the market share. Of course, we need to increase the market share of locally manufactured. However, what Dr. Vimal said, he mentioned that UNIDO had done a survey and 70% by value terms was imported. And, it's very right. He mentioned about the class of drugs. The other thing you also have to remember is the value of the drugs being imported. Some of them are, if you look at cancer drugs, if you look at certain other types in a similar range, the value is quite high. So yes, maybe it could be 70% imported, but if you switch it the other way and look at the unit-wise, it'll probably be the other way around. So unit-wise, the quantity would be 60-70% is locally manufactured, and imported is 30%. Now, you mentioned what is it that we need to do? Yes, there's a lot of barriers that are there, which we need to look at to in the last couple of years, with the tax regime, which is not being very friendly for local manufacturing at the moment. So there's a lot of things which is, if we go into point 2 and point 3, which will give us an idea on how we can increase it. Why, I mean, we've also realized that with this COVID situation, there has been a challenge of getting products from overseas. And we've always been saying that it's better to have them locally manufactured so that they're readily available, they're closer, the dispatch time, everything is very quickly available. So we do need to, sorry, you cannot hear me?
We can hear you. We can
okay,
hear you, Dr. Rohin, loud and clear.
Somebody. Okay, that's fine. So what we need to do, which we've realized that we need more of these items manufactured locally, and we need more support for local manufacturers. It's not only that we need more investment from outside. There's a lot of local manufacturers who do want to invest. The question is it the right time to invest or not at the moment? You know, we were all excited with this agenda, the Big Four agenda, industrialization, UHC, which was linked to, if you remember, Vision 2030, industrialization policy. So that's where we are at the moment.
Okay, I think what I'm hearing is that we have a long way to go in terms of making an enabling environment to further expand local manufacturing.
Sorry, Daniela.
Yeah.
There is a lot happening, but maybe we could hasten the process. You know, it's happening. So it is happening, but maybe we could just push the agenda a little bit faster.
Yeah, true. And I'm happy to see somebody from PPB here, you know, because they need to note those points. So I'll just repeat, this is a Zoom meeting, it's not a webinar, so we are free to raise our hands and make a point orally. Just if you need to say something or ask the panelists something, you can raise your hand, or you can put your question on the chat box and I'll direct it to our two panelists. So I'll move, before I go to the participants' questions, I'll move back to you, Dr. Vimal, to just, you know, focus on the last two bullet points and add on to what Dr. Vora has said about challenges and how to mitigate them and policy enablers / barriers.
Okay. All right, Daniela, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So basically, yes. You know, anything we do, we need to keep in mind that what are we trying to achieve? Are we trying to achieve the security of this country so that pharmaceuticals are available? Especially the COVID-19, has it taught us a lesson that we need to be slightly self-sufficient in major products that affect our population? So now when I look at that and I look at an industry perspective, yeah, what would it mean for Cosmos to start all over again? Would the policies right now and the way Kenya is moving, would it mean that is my board happy to invest in this country? The clear answer is no, okay? The reason is that there's so many challenges that are there. Rohin just mentioned that it's not that nothing is happening. I think a lot is happening, but the speed at which it's happening is not fast enough, okay, for realization of a return of investment. So if we look at this, if we look at the Public Procurement Act, for instance, yeah, it's not level playing field. Now, what I mean by that, a manufacturer gets 15% price preferential treatment, yeah, a manufacturer who employs a number of people. However, an importer who just employs a handful of people and has 51% Kenyan shareholding has 10%. So the difference of that 5%, does it make sense to employ 400 or 500 people, put an infrastructure of over $12 million, etc.? So I don't think that it's a good encouraging point. Then the other thing is that when we look at the pharma business, it's not like FMCG. Pharma business involves a lot of infrastructural cost, yeah? The facilities, everything. And right now, the tax regime has moved the capitalization of new equipment from 100% to 50%. Again, it doesn't make sense to invest in this country. The second thing is that there is VAT on all machineries and analytical instruments. Now, do we want to promote quality? And if we want to promote quality, then we have to look at a number of things, including the kind of equipment we have. So this doesn't encourage it. And the VAT is not claimable. And I'll explain to you why. The VAT status on pharmaceuticals moved from 0 to exempt now. Now, what it means that the 0 rated means that VAT was claimed on the machinery and the equipment, we could claim it back. Now with the exempt, you can't. So all these things are chargeable now, and it becomes a cost to the company, including electricity and other services. So again, your margins are cut down, so your ROI is going to be affected. The second thing, the other thing that we realized that the RDL IDF was reduced to encourage local production. Now, what has happened recently over the last 2 months, all the pharma manufacturers importing packaging material are jacked up with RDL IDF for same as finished products. So again, there was no preference for local manufacturing. And this is simply because somebody in KRA decides to think of a different way of making or interpreting the law and trying to collect money. Right now, even FKPM is having a problem. Who do we approach to correct this situation? There's nobody waiting to listen. And on top of all this, we have now what's coming into play, the extended producer responsibility. What that means that there's a recycling economy about your packaging and everything. You know, Kenya has not reached to the level of the UK or Americas to be able to do this, but this is now what is coming in. Again, if I had to put a factory, would I do it? The answer is no. So these sort of things really need to be looked at. I think they're looking at it, but we need a drive from the top. For example, we want MOH, Ministry of Industry, Treasury, and KRA working together for a common goal and being pushed by the office of the president if we have to achieve what we plan. As Dr. Wanyanga mentioned in the earlier meeting, the Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Plan of Action for Africa, if we want to achieve that, then we need to drive this. And Bangladesh, India, it happened because it was driven by the head of state. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Vimal. There are some questions I've seen on the chat. There's a very broad question here from Tessie Oranga. What are the major pointers in starting a drug production unit? Very wide question, but is there any way, you know, and I'll send it to both of you, Vimal and Roheen, is there any way that you can summarize, you know, starting points and highlights for when somebody wants to start a drug production unit? Maybe we can start with you, Vimal.
Okay, so first of all, when you want to start a drug manufacturing business, and I'll take you down the memory lane of what my father did almost 30 years ago. My father is a pharmacist, he's 91 years old. He went straight away from a chemist shop, which was E.T. Monks and Company, to Cosmos. So first of the thing is that you need to have your vision why you want to do it. And he had a vision which was making Kenya self-sufficient in medicines at that time. So that's one. Number two, you need to have some sort of idea and visit some plants to get an idea of what is involved. Now, what is involved is there's an infrastructure cost, which is the pharmaceutical manufacturing facility, yeah, which is not an easy thing because every now and then regulations change, but it's not difficult. And when I say it's not difficult, that's because we've got 37 manufacturers here. If they can do it, you can do it, yeah? Then comes to the thing about expertise on how you make things. You need the right type of people involved in your organization. So there are a number of these things, you know, I mean, I can go on and on, but maybe one day you call me and I'll talk to you one-to-one on it, yeah? But those are some of the things that need to be done. It's not difficult, it just needs, it's a journey, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, a journey that starts with a vision.
Correct.
Yeah, Roheen, any Other pointers, you might point to somebody like me who wants to start production.
I think what Vimal has said is very true. It's a journey, but the journey starts with the vision, and it also, you need to have that ethical background and ethical, which I think most of us pharmacists do, and not just treat it as a normal business, which other manufacturers sometimes do. There's a lot involved. And yes, the infrastructure cost, we're now in a situation where you can't just go to a shop, or you can't just have a warehouse and start manufacturing the products. You need to have a lot of infrastructure in place. You need to have some guidance from whether internally, externally, local, other local manufacturers on how to go about it. And, the regulator has to be involved in that as well when you want to set up a plant, because you don't want to do something and then you're told that this is the way it should be. However, one of the biggest challenges in Kenya at the moment for any business is the number of regulators that are there. You are regulated. If you want to do any business, you're regulated by so many different ministries. I mean, Vimal mentioned Treasury, Industrialization, Ministry of Health, KRA. I will even introduce Ministry of Environment, Agriculture. It depends what you want to do. Now, what the best way, I think, is if you have an overall or either an overall ministry or one single business entity looking after it all. At CAM, we have a lot of guidance from the Danish industries. And what the Danish industries, what they do is they work together. The Danish industries, the private sector also guides government on what is the best way to produce. It's not just one-sided. I think that is another way we should be looking at. Challenges, Vimal mentioned a lot of things, VAT, investment deduction, public procurement. There was another good incentive last year in 2019, which was introduced by the government, which was the electricity rebate to reduce the costs. This year, they've removed it with the Finance Act. So I think one of the challenges, we don't have any sort of, we're not sure what the tax regime will be year on year. Every day somebody will wake up and it'll change. So we don't know about that. The other thing is, we compete against the Indias and the Chinas of the world, and they get export subsidies on their products, and on the other side we get charged. So there is a difference which we need to look at as well.
Dr. Rohin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you for that, those pointers that give us both the challenges that are likely to be experienced when one is starting a pharma production unit. But it's also good to note that some regulatory and policy enablers have happened, but we definitely need more. I know you had touched on this, but because I see it on the chat from Dr. George Mugi, Vimal, if you could recap again what interventions are needed to attract private sector investments in the pharmaceutical sector. That's a question from Dr. George Mugi.
Okay, so that's a very good question, George. A question that what do we need as an enabler? First and foremost, I would say that if we can change the Public Procurement Act to favor local manufacturers without just a differential of 5%, I can tell you one thing, I will put money to expand my capacities. All right, so that's one. Number two, that the VAT Act should be pushed back to 0 and there should be 100% capitalization. in the first year. The reason is that when you invest, you want your ROI to become shorter. Yeah. And the VAT going into zero rating means that all the VATs that we are paying can be recoverable. The other thing is that we need to look at the big wins, yeah? And I'm not going to look at small. One is the Preferential Public Procurement Act that needs to change it immediately. And number two, this Buy Kenya, Build Kenya, which the president has been advocating, and I'm sure a lot of government agencies advocate, we need to be serious. That means that if there are 3 good pharma companies locally that are making this product, why are we not putting VAT on those products? Yeah. Now, somebody will say to me that VAT will become expensive. Why can't we look at it another way? Can that VAT be pumped, that revenue connected, can it be pumped to UHC and used for UHC? So it benefits the people of Kenya, not the people of India and China, where we buy imported products from. That's the way I look at it. I think we need to give support to PPB as well. PPB has been trying very hard to help local manufacturers, but they have constraints in terms of amount of resources. And I think these 2 things, enablers, will go a long way. You know, you need to show the investor that, look, if you put your money here, you will get a return. So the guy is confident. Yeah, that's what we need to do. And I think these 2 big win points, we can change things. Yeah, we can change things.
Yeah.
The other thing we need to also look at is that, I know maybe it's diverting, but you know, the pharmacy curriculum has been ancient. For example, it's really geared to community and hospital, very little to the manufacturing sector. I mean, I'd like to see local pharmacists being trained in the pharma sector, being employed by the manufacturing sector. This is the way Kenya should be going.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point.
Yeah, so
in fact, on Friday.
So yes,
go ahead. Yeah, on Friday, we have a session on policy and regulatory framework for enabling pharmacists provide primary health care. And that's one of the panelists is from academia. So because we want to find out if policy and regulation are supporting pharmacists to provide healthcare services, and of course producing essential medicines is part of primary healthcare provision by pharmacists. And we also want to ask the universities, are we preparing people adequately just in their undergraduate, so that we're not just waiting for people to go and do an MPharm in whatever area for them to be relevant in primary healthcare. So that'll be an important point to raise in that panel on Friday as well.
And just to add to that, Daniela, I'm sure, I mean, Cosmos and other companies, now we've got some old tableting machines. I'd rather give it to the university, they can use it rather than sitting with no value. And I'm sure Rowan, myself, we can also come and, give a session at the university, etc. to motivate people to go through that channel, yeah?
Exactly. Hands-on experience is so important because, when we just memorize those structures of how to make this and that, once we arrive even for internship, we have no idea. And so that hands-on experience, if it can be got from the university in a skills lab, it would be so useful.
Correct.
I think, Daniela, that used to be done at the University of Nairobi. I don't know whether it's still being done, but I know that we did have some members from the pharmaceutical manufacturing industry actually giving lectures at the university a few years back. I don't know if that is still happening. Maybe you could expound on that and let us know whether that's happening or not. But as Vimal said, there's a lot of us who can give that information. We do take a lot of pharmacists when they're coming for interns. They can come and learn whatever they want to. There's just one thing I think Vimal mentioned. Vimal, I just need to correct you slightly. I think you were talking of VAT for the products. I think it should be a restriction. if there are 3 manufacturers, not VAT, I think some sort of restriction in place so that only locally items manufactured locally are bought. I think, is that correct?
Yeah, Rowan, that's correct as well. Yeah.
So Daniela, yes, that's correct. I think, you know, we are always complaining that, not complaining, but we're always having challenges with having the skill. There is a skills gap for the pharmaceutical industry. And, you know, that is why a lot of us do try and, should I say, bring in expatriates. There's a reason why the expatriates come, because they have got the experience, especially if you want to go in newer technologies and newer products. So even if we can't do the, while you're discussing it, even if we can't do the actual training here, we should maybe look at, do we send them for a gap year to countries where there is expertise, whether that's possible or not, to as an extension to working in the local pharma industry. And you know, there is a big potential for growth of the local pharmaceutical manufacturing industry in Kenya. If you just look at whether you look at Kenya, whether you look at EAC, and whether you look at Africa as a region, the number of people that are there, there's a big scope. And a lot of us are willing to invest if the environment is enabling.
Okay. Some very important points there about partnerships with universities that give, you know, hands-on experience to students. Other type of enablers from the policy space. I want to just ask Dr. Wilberforce Wanyanga to give a comment. His hand has been up.
Thank you.
Dr. Wanyanga, you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make one general comment, which might help us look forward in the development of this industry in this sector. Number one is that from long time ago, when we used to have the kit system, a decision was taken when we had the Minister of Health to buy local because the kits were more easier to assemble and deliver to government stores and dispensaries and hospitals. That led to a lot of development in the local industry. So many were established and many of them started expanding. Then this buying local has been going on until now. I think there's a little bit more emphasis on that. Now, when you look at all this, then of course, there's the Big Four agenda. When you look at all these initiatives, which are very, very positive, you realize that there is no there is no government program for development of the pharmaceutical industry. And that will lead to incoherencies in implementation of the little piece and pieces we have here in that sector. So what this country requires now is a conversation. And that conversation will address the various issues. The issues that will be addressed, of course, where do you start? We have people doing herbal medicines. They want to manufacture. How do we start them off? How do we start off with the people who are, those investors who want to start maybe with a few items? Do they always start with paracetamol or can they start with something else? We have seen the opportunity during this COVID with hand sanitizers. It went out of scale. We have non-pharmaceutical industry now manufacturing them and overshadowing there would be starters in this area. And we know the problem that is now associated, because when they said alcohol-based, anybody who was taking any alcohol, whether it was ethanol, whether it was whatever it was, and there are a lot of bad things happening in the side effects and adverse effects related to hand sanitizers. Can we control it? And so that national conference would bring to light what needs to be done. How to use expertise? How do they come in? Can they come and train as part of their contractual agreement? Can we bring in experts from Germany, from Italy, from wherever for a specific area, and then they help the country? Now, does the country want really to export? And if the country wants to export to increase its economy, is it just to export to Uganda and Tanzania, or do we want to take over the region as a whole? And that requires a strategy that is government driven, so that you don't move 3 foot forward and then KRA comes and takes you backwards. And we need all the government sectors and the private sector and the people of Kenya to talk to each other, have a fair conversation of the do's and the don'ts, and which are the areas to support those ones who are already manufacturing, and how do we improve those ones how do we support those ones who are starting, those ones who are in the middle, and those ones who are on the top. So this is the kind of thing that I feel that we are missing. We still have hazard programs coming here and there, not very, very well coordinated, because they fall in between ministries, and different ministries have different objectives, and therefore we need some conversation on one table. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wanyanga. Any response to Dr. Wanyanga's remarks from our panelists?
I fully agree with Wilberforce there. Yeah, it's some of the things that it's what we've been mentioning. It's there. Yeah, yeah. But sometimes we also talk about APIs. A lot of times we've been hearing, why don't we have APIs being manufactured here? Now, for example, why would I put an API factory here? I wouldn't, because there's not enough volume to justify API production, simply because everything is being imported. The importer in India is not going to buy my API, and to manufacture API, you need a petrochemical industry as well. We don't have a petrochemical industry here. India has, which then solvents become cheaper. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any comment, Dr. Rahim?
Yeah, I think we just, sometimes we lose the bigger picture. We just have to be careful in what we allow who to manufacture. As Dr. Wanyanga said, everybody jumped into manufacturing the sanitizers. For whatever reasons, I even heard that a lot of the sanitizers that were made for free consumption were actually being sold. So, there has to be some sort of, yes, they are required by the general public, but there has to be some sort of policy direction and some sort of restriction as to who can do it. Not just anybody can, any Tom, Dick, and Harry should be allowed to just manufacture anything they want. Tomorrow we may get into a situation where I may start manufacturing, whether it's paracetamol or something, from a garage. Maybe that used to happen 30, 40 years ago, but not anymore.
Yeah.
Daniela, finally, I'd like to emphasize one thing. Quality is paramount. Yeah, it's as important as to the people of Africa as it's to the people overseas.
Yes.
This misconception that people sometimes have that local production is not good enough. I'd like people to visit these factories and see for themselves what we do and how we do and what is our quality management systems involved. Wilberforce has seen a number of these factories, UNIDO has seen, and they're all been happy. And do we trust our PPB? Yes, we do. They're the ones who inspect our facilities. They're the ones who give us licenses. They know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think that's the point as well. Yeah.
We need to change the narrative so that doesn't become a barrier. And, that's another conversation for another day about the marketing practices of some of the drug companies. Have they created a narrative to favor only one side, the imported medicines? And that even leads us to things about brand marketing or brand prescribing. We need to draw the lines maybe differently up to, in terms of marketing. How far do you go? Is it healthy to have the prescribers always prescribed by brand? Those are questions that maybe we can talk about another day.
Sure.
Yeah, so some very interesting comments that I'll read out for you, Rohin and Vimal. Dr. Christine Wangia from Chebu Pharmaceutical Limited is saying she has worked on Kenyan medicinal plants for the management of rheumatoid arthritis for over 10 years. She has ascertained the safety and efficacy and got a patent for a pharmaceutical formulation in 2016. In February 2020, she got the product trademarked. PPB requires that she partners with a GMP company to manufacture the herbal medicine. So this is a herbal product. So she says they're looking for such a partner to move this product to market. And she'll be very excited to get contacts of local manufacturers so that she can have her product developed. So that just something to let you know, Vimal and Rohin, I know you can easily connect her to the right organization. Dr. Isaac Kemani is a lecturer from JKUAT School of Pharmacy, and he says he'll be glad to engage you on the proposal to donate some of your equipment to the universities and offer lectures and mentor the students. So please, connect after this, Dr. Isaac Kemani and our panelists for those discussions. Dr. George Mugi also says that Vimal's point about industrial pharmacists visiting our pharmacy training institutions will partly address the apathy shown by pharmacists towards working in the industry, but what else can be done? So this is pointing to what we know, that there's a lot of apathy, maybe because of lack of exposure by the students. They don't want to work in industry. So those are just some of the comments that I'm seeing on the chat. There's also somebody asking about regulators strictly imposing a uniform code of GMP compliance for both local manufacturers and exporters to qualify in the tendering process. This shall provide safe access of medicines to patients. So I don't know whether you understand that question. Can this provide safe access of medicine to patients, enforcing a uniform GMP code to both? And how can we achieve this in reality?
Okay, so Daniela, first and foremost, to those three colleagues of mine, sure, they can have my email, which I'm sure they can get it from you, and they can get in touch with me, and we can take that level of discussion somewhere else. The last question on GMP, can you repeat that question again?
Yeah, so he says that what is your opinion on having regulators strictly imposing a uniform code of GMP compliance for both local manufacturers and exporters to qualify in the tendering process? Yeah.
Okay. So let me be very clear here. Yeah, we need to go back to when the multinationals were also making in garages. Yeah, in the early 60s and 59. When the thalidomide case happened, that's when they started changing. All right. So Rome was not built in one day. Now, if we look at the manufacturers in Kenya, we got almost, I think, if I'm not wrong, about 37 manufacturers, and the quality of their facilities, they range. Now we start imposing our standard policy to some of these, then you will cut off those people who are trying to come up.
I think Vimal has got. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, Vimal, are you back? We
Yeah,
lost you for a minute.
Oh, did you? Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yes.
So what I'm saying is PPB has a roadmap, yeah, of GMP. So
Yes.
that's being followed. And I agree that at one time in our lifetime, we would like to see the same standards being applied here as overseas. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, Daniela, you can provide my contacts, and also I think you can provide the contacts for the federation in case anybody, we can forward it to the federation if anybody is interested with regards to all the other questions, which is not a problem. You know, with regards to GMP compliance, yes, I think we need to walk the journey together with the regulator. At the end of the day, what do we want? Whether you manufacture a product in X facility or Y facility, if you follow your procedures and you have a minimum level of compliance, I don't see where the problem would be. The only challenge is, you know, I would always say, let's look at local and let's not look at imported products. I just wanted to make one comment which we have not expounded on. You know, the support for the local manufacturing industry is not, it's a holistic thing, because the minute you support one industry, as like in the example of pharmaceuticals, you will have a lot of other subsidiary industries which are supplying to the local manufacturers that will start growing. What is going to happen? The economy will grow. So I think that is the direction. I mean, we keep on saying it, but I'm just reiterating it, that we should not be supporting imported products, full stop, especially if they're manufactured locally. Sorry, I just veered off because I'm so passionate about local manufacturing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If it's been produced local, we should protect our local industry. Dr. Wanyanga, please unmute yourself. I know you have a comment about the concept of GMP roadmap.
I just wanted to say this, that GMP, we must demystify GMP. It's not just for the selected few. It is a standard. And this standard, it depends on how you want to apply it. When we were doing the GMP roadmap, we conceptualized it on the basis that there are different manufacturers are at different levels, but they need to ultimately get to WHO GMP. But starting from where you are, it means that you have to get a very fair assessment of, number one, what products are you doing, what kind of facility do you have, and what are the issues related to that, and work on correcting those issues which are pertaining. And depending on your financial ability, depending on the other factors, you can be able to improve and comply with the GMP standards at your subject to what you are doing at your level. And therefore, it's not a preserve of any, whether it's multinational or the big five in Kenya or the lower five in Kenya or anybody else who wants to achieve GMP. We have ways and means of making sure that all manufacturers comply, including those ones who are doing traditional and herbal medicines. I've visited one or two of the plants in this country, I've given them advice, and I'm happy that some of them have their products registered at PPB. And we only need to look back on what do we want to achieve through CAPA and through deliberate reinvestment and investment. We should be able all to achieve GMP.
I think
Yeah,
I would just like to add, Daniela, on this GMP issue, which Dr. Bonyanga, you know, we also need to demystify WHO PQ and GMP. You could have a company which is WHO pre-qualified, and you could have a GMP company, and they're both at the same quality standards. So, you know, we shouldn't, we should be well aware that if you're WHO pre-qualified, it doesn't mean that you're at a higher level than a GMP company. I think that is something that has to be demystified.
I agreed with you, Roy, and I think, you know, when you get WHO pre-qualified, you're getting pre-qualification of a product, not a facility only, a product as well.
So GMP, what is it called? Licensing is for the entire production.
No, sorry to jump in. There are 3 stages. Number one, if a manufacturer wants to come into the manufacturing sector, the first thing is to get a premises. So he'll apply to PPB. What is required is that you get the premises suitability, that you are certified these premises, you can be able to advance your vision to manufacture. Then you'll have to do the infrastructure development, the machinery and the building. And then you have got to certify them that they are suitable for the products that you are going to manufacture. And then after that, you wait for the inspection, and then you are licensed. And the licensing means you are able to manufacture medicines for distribution. That's part one. Now, when you now start manufacturing, the GMP itself comes in, the good practices in production. Now, that is what we need to refine the definition of a GMP certificate. So some of these things exist in practice, but they have not been captured into the law and guidelines, so that we are able now to make sure that all these stages are adhered to before we then, of course, after manufacturing, you need marketing authorization for those products. So there are quite a number of stages which are not detailed, and CAP 244 is silent because we need to look at manufacturing and see what can be licensed, what is a practice, and what is a standard. But GMP itself, we look at it as a standard, is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I had been kicked out because of network issues. But before I left, I had seen Jacinta had her hand up. Jacinta, I think she's left.
Hello, hi Daniela.
I'm good.
Here.
Okay, great.
The difference is I'm on the road.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Dr. Anyanga, Vimal, Rohin, they've clarified what is PQ and what's GMP. GMP, pre-qualification is a voluntary scheme by WHO for procurement purposes mostly, and a company and it's product specific. So a company can have 3 lines, and WHO will be interested in only 1 line, and on that 1 line there'll be only 1 product. So we need to, as Rohin said, we need to demystify the issue of GMP pre-qualification, WHO pre-qualification, so that it's not used as a yardstick. It's something good to have for a company, but it should not be used as a yardstick for quality. That's one thing. The other thing, I think I've listened to all the discussions about policies and regulatory, and as I was discussing with manufacturers yesterday, this is the time to really come in the middle of policy making, because the government is interested in fostering local production. and in achievement of UHC. And one of the things we are doing is also coming up with a list for preferential procurement for essential medicine from the local manufacturers. So I think time is ripe. We've been pushing this for a very long time. This is the time to really be proactively and be seen to advocate for policies that really will benefit us in a long run. Yeah, so other than that, I think it's a very good discussion and we need to keep up. I think we should not just wait for PSK conference, Daniela. I think you need to elicit more of this discussion so that then we maybe even come up with a proper paper, for presentation to petition the government or the relevant bodies to be able to. Because one of the things, I don't know, I didn't hear Rohin mention here, but I heard him mention yesterday about tax regimes changing. So the investors are not sure what taxation regime will come next week or after a month or after 1 year. So those are issues that needs to be clearly articulated if we have to grow as a country in provision of health products and technologies to our people from the local production. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll say, Jacinta, thank you for that. PSK is very willing to endorse, to even develop together with FKPM a policy position on this, and for PPB to push it at higher government levels. So please count on our support as PSK. We want to build Kenya. While we give a free space for competition in the market, we want to do everything we can to grow our own local industry. So Dr. Rohin and Vimal, as PSK, we're willing to collaborate on developing these policy positions and doing joint advocacy with government. And we already have one government arm, that's PPB, that's willing to support. So let's continue after the conference, Vimal and Rohin, to progress this.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Daniela. And thank you to PSK to offer a hand. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this session. Thank you.
Yes, in fact, it's time for just the final comments. We've run out of time. Time has flown so fast. So your final comments, Vimal, then I move to Rohin.
My final comment is, I like this, that you've invited me, and, my hand is open to any aspiring pharmacists who want to work in the pharmaceutical industry. I can give my wisdom of 30 years. And if they get chance to meet my father, who is probably one of the oldest living pharmacists in this country, I would be honored to introduce him to you. And, the other thing is that in the 30 years that I've benefited here, I'd like to help Kenya achieve its goals. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So those of you listening, please grab the opportunity to get the 30-year wisdom of local manufacturing from Vimal, especially the young pharmacists. Your final comments, Rohin?
Thank you, Daniela. I think it has been a pleasure to be invited here. I don't have that 30-year experience in the pharmaceutical industry, but maybe if you can grab a little bit from me, it's more than welcome. And yeah, I think we're more than willing, myself, and I'm sure other members from the industry would be willing to assist and provide more information to anybody aspiring or thinking about putting a pharmaceutical plant or getting sort of further information. So the contact details are there, even the Federation contact details are there. So anybody, any sort of questions, you can provide the details.
Yes, asante sana to our panelists. Thank you very much to our, do I call it default panelist, Dr. Wanyanga? You showed up and you automatically became a panelist. Thank you for sharing your nuggets of wisdom. But Jacinta makes a good point. Let's not leave it at this. Let's progress this agenda so that by the time we're having the PSK conference next year, we have something to report about our advocacy for boosting local production.
And we hope maybe it's not on Zoom.
Oh my goodness, it will be better just next year when the conference opens up in Mombasa. I'm sure we'll get more than 1,000 because we have now fully appreciated
Yes.
physical conferences. It's it's an experience that we miss very much. So thank you, participants. Time is up. I hope that you can join the conference again tomorrow with the link for the conference, not this link. This was just for the breakouts. Asante sana, we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, enjoy your lunch, everybody, and have a nice day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.